Hey everyone, Justin here, and this is another out of character review. We're going to be talking about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie. Okay, so why am I talking about this particular movie? Um, it requires a little bit of backstory. You see, I have a strange relationship with the Power Rangers franchise. Um, when I was a little kid, Power Rangers was like the Holy Grail. Um, it was that one thing that was like the most amazing thing ever, but I just couldn't get my hands on it. Because, number one, my mother wasn't really that crazy about it. She thought it was a little violent and a little too action packed for a young mind. And not only was my mother not so crazy about it, but every time it was on TV, I I was somewhere or in a position where I couldn't be in front of the TV watching it. Like, I was rarely ever able to actually watch it on TV. I was either always sleeping or at school when it was on, or just watching something else, not knowing it was on. So the very few times I actually caught it on TV as a kid, um, I was like the happiest kid in the world because, oh my goodness, I'm actually watching Power Rangers. And it's amazing because it's Power Rangers. And so I did see this movie as a child. However, I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it. I did, of course, see it because, I mean, it was the Power Rangers. I mean, I had to watch it. I was Justin, and it was the Power Rangers. You know, Justin and Power Rangers, they got to go together. So, of course, I did see this movie as a child, but I didn't really pay much attention to it, and therefore there are really only a few scenes that stick out in my head prior to when I was a child, because I really didn't pay that much attention to it. I was a kid and cared more about, you know, the Power Rangers than that particular movie, if that makes sense. Flash forward many, 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 many years later to a few months ago. Like late like October or September of last year, something like that, and um, it had been a little while since the new Power Rangers film came out, um, the one where they all look like Iron Man, that one, yeah. And even though I never saw that, got me thinking. That got me remembering like my strange relationship with Power Rangers as a child. You know, the fact that it was the Holy Grail. It was that one thing that was super amazing, but I could never get to it. I could never watch it. And that made me think, you know, I wonder what I would think of Power Rangers like as an adult today. And so I spent a while, like maybe a month, 2 months, something like that, watching the first season of the original show on Netflix. And the first season is not a little thing because, unlike most shows, Power Rangers went throughout all the year, and therefore each season has like 50 to 60 episodes. So the first season was a lot. And that's why I only watched the first season. I didn't watch all 3 seasons of the original show or any of the sequel shows. But I watched the first season of the original show, that 60 episodes, not in one big binge period, like one or two, maybe three a day for like 2 or 3 months. Like I just, it was something I was casually doing just to see, you know, what I thought of the show like as an adult. And wow, did my childhood brain not realize how stupid that was? It's a horrible show. It is horrendous. The writing is Tommy Wiseau levels. The acting is ungodly terrible. It's obvious these actors were cast for their athletic ability and not for their acting ability. The plots of each episode and the overarching plot of the series in general are so horrendously ridiculous and stupid. It's a horrible show. But even though it was absolutely horrendous in every single way, I found myself enjoying it. I found myself thinking, this is so stupid. Why don't I hate it? Why am I not hating this? This is so bad. This is an insult to everything children's television can be, because the excuse, oh, it's for children, that's not an excuse. Because there are some legitimately good children's shows out there. So the idea, oh, it's for children, that's not really an excuse. So this insult to everything children's television can be this horrible insult to God himself show. I'm not hating it for some reason. I'm actually enjoying it. And I came to just accept the fact that it was horrendously stupid and horrendously awful, but in a fun way. It's not like Batman and Robin, where, horrendously stupid means horrendously stupid. It's, horrendously stupid, but it's like I made the comparison to Tommy Wiseau earlier, and yeah, The Room is horrendously horrible, but it's enjoyable because of how bad it is, and that's kind of what Power Rangers is to me right now. It's so bad it's good. It's so bad and so stupid and so ridiculous that I can't help but enjoy it. Being the kind of person that I am when it comes to entertainment. So flash forward a short amount of time after that. I think it was actually still while I was watching that first season. Yeah, it was. It was like just as I was finishing that first season. I'm back in the U.S., in Florida, visiting my family. And I'm walking through Walmart, and I see a DVD copy of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, the original one, for $5. And I'm thinking to myself, what the heck? So, because I was legit curious. I mean, this movie had been getting more and more attention since the new Power Rangers movie was coming out. People had started to look back at it nostalgically, and I did remember seeing it as a kid. So similarly to how I wanted to see the original show again, just to see what I thought of it as an adult, I wanted to see this movie again, just to see what I thought of it as an adult. And it wasn't on Netflix like the show was, so it made sense to spend the $5 on the DVD. So, yeah, why not? I mean, the show is so horrendously amazing in how ridiculous it is. Imagine what the cinematic version is like. And so, tonight, several months after that, I finally watched it tonight, and after watching the show, I didn't think it could get more ridiculous. I was wrong. This movie is so much worse than the show. This movie is so bad. Is so terrible. It's literally The Room levels of bad. It literally is. Like, if Tommy Wiseau made a Power Rangers movie, this is pretty close to what that would be. It is so terrible. First of all, at its roots, it's a longer version of it's a longer episode of the show. It follows the same formula as the show. I mean, the same exact formula that every single episode of the show had was Rita and or Lord Zed come up with this new monster to destroy the Power Rangers, and the Power Rangers fight that new monster's minions. They defeat the minions, and so the new monster gets super big and gigantic. They get in their big robot Zord thingies, and they get super gigantic. Then there's these two big gigantic things fighting each other. They save the day. The end. That's the exact same formula and set of plot points in every single episode of the show. That's that same formula. That's pretty much what they do in this movie too, just with a few rabbit trails along the way, but that's pretty much essentially what this movie is. It's a longer episode of the show, complete with the same formula, the same horrendous writing, the same horrendous acting, the same horrendous editing, the same horrendous everything, only this time It's even more ridiculous. I know I just said the same. This is an improvised video. I apologize. It's even more ridiculous. It's. I don't want to get into. If I start like getting into more detail, I'm gonna start going into specifics, and I don't like going into very many specifics in these out of character videos because they're less reviews and more the in-depth analysis that I do with the Multi Prometheus 1 videos. But just think, if Tommy Wiseau made a Power Rangers movie, that's what this would be. It is that horrendously terrible. The villain, however, the main villain in this movie that Rita and Lord Zed get to do their bidding this time is his name is Ivan Ooze, because of course that you can have a villain in a Power Rangers movie. Of course his name's going to be Ivan Ooze. And he's played by the guy who played Belloc in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And when you watch Raiders of the Lost Ark and you see Belloc, it seems like this guy is like a sophisticated actor. And I am like a Bond villain in my sophisticationness. So I was really, really interested to see like how he would be in a Power Rangers movie. Yes, he is completely ridiculous in the movie, as you'd expect, but he's actually the one redeeming part of the movie. Like, how ridiculous he is in this movie is actually a ton of fun. He is a ton of fun in this movie, and the only thing in the movie that I legitimately enjoyed. So, if you're gonna watch this movie for any reason, do it for Belloc as the villain, because it's not good. I mean, it's not good, but it's fun. Like, he is a ton of fun in this movie with how ridiculously over the top he is. But the characters, even the characters from the show, they don't really feel like the characters from the show. I mean, they're the same actors. This is just occurring to me now. They kind of feel like cardboard cutouts of the characters in the show. Like, it's almost like the writers of this movie were like, well, the character Billy is the nerdy one, so here's some nerdy dialogue for him. Tommy, he's the big strong leader, so here's some leader-ish things for him to say, you know. And the characters in the show weren't that three-dimensional and fleshed out either, but they kind of got even more bland in this movie. Almost like the writers weren't familiar with the show and they just got like a brief synopsis of what each character is supposed to be and did that. Bulk and Skull, who are some of the most popular characters from the show, they're the comic relief bullies from the show. They're in this movie, but barely. Like, they play such a little role. They're in a few scenes in this movie, but those scenes are so short and far apart, and they play such a small role in what happens that I honestly don't see why they were in this movie. I mean, I guess, you know, the answer is, well, it's a Power Rangers movie, you gotta have Bulk and Skull in there, but they were pointless. They did not need to be in this movie. The only reason they're in this movie is so all the little kids can go, look, it's Bulk and Skull! They go to another planet in this movie. It's a ghost. They go to another planet in this movie, and I mean, usually I don't have a problem with other planets looking like Earth in movies and TV, because of course, I mean, you can't go to other planets and actually film there, and you don't always have the budget for a big complex set or CGI background or anything. So, I mean, when movies use Earth and locations that are obviously on Earth as other planets, I usually don't have a problem with it. But because I mean, Star Wars, Tatooine was shot in Africa. I mean, that's obviously the African desert when you watch that movie. Stargate, almost all the forest scenes are obviously Canada. I mean, so I usually don't have a problem with other planets in movies and TV looking like Earth because they were obviously shot on Earth. But for some reason, it sticks out a little bit more in this movie, and I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, yeah, I mean, if I really think about it, there's nothing that different about the other planet scenes in this movie compared to other planet scenes in other movies and TV shows. But for some reason, just subconsciously, it sticks out a little bit more. Like, that's obviously not another planet, that's obviously Earth, and I can't quite put my finger on it. Hmm. Maybe it's just because I've heard other people review this movie and they say that, and maybe that's just influencing the way I'm perceiving it. I don't know. I really tried not to let other people's reviews influence this one. I mean, Chris Stuckman did a great review of this movie last year, and I had all these ideas for this review that where I could do to make it funny and everything. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized like all these ideas we're having were exactly what Chris Stuckman did, and I was just like subconsciously ripping off Chris Stuckman and not realizing it. So I really tried. I'm really trying to not let other reviews of this movie influence my opinion on the film or the way I'm doing the review in general. But it's really that. The last thing I'm going to say in my general review is this movie is, if Tommy Wiseau made a Power Rangers movie, that's what this movie would be. It is that ridiculous. It is that horribly written. It is that horribly acted. It is that horribly everything. But it's that much fun. Like Tommy Wiseau's The Room, like James Nguyen, however you pronounce his name, Birdemic, it's so bad that it's fun. It's so terrible and ridiculous that it's fun. If you and your friends want to get together and make fun of a bad movie for an hour and a half, this is a great movie to do it with. I mean, it's a ton of fun to watch simply because of how horrible and ridiculous it is. That being said, I have a few things that I wrote down, just specific things that I noticed it while I was watching the movie, and I was like, yeah, I want to mention that, but I don't know where to put it in. So there's no structure to these things. These are just things that I thought of when I was watching the movie and wrote down. The visual effects, the visual and special effects. Generally, I try not to talk about special and visual effects in these review videos and these out of character videos. Or in my Multi-Prometheus 1 videos either. I generally try not to talk about special and visual effects because that's all they are, special and visual effects. They don't impact the story, they don't impact the characters, they don't impact the writing or anything. So they really... So I can tolerate a bad special effect or a bad visual effect as long as the story and the characters are good and well written and well thought out. So generally I try not to talk about special and visual effects. There is a difference, by the way. Not a lot of people know this. Special effect it's a special effect if it was physically on set in front of the camera. It's a visual effect if it was done with computers. Not a lot of people know there's a difference. But the special and visual effects in this movie are worth mentioning because they're so inconsistent. On the one hand, you've got this scene on the other planet where this like dinosaur skeleton comes to life and starts attacking them. I know it's a really stupid scene. And it's not CGI. It's an actual full-sized puppet. And it actually looks pretty decent. Like, it actually looks real. Like, I was impressed. Then you have the Zord battles at the end of the movie. And it's some of the most horrendous CGI I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, it was... Like, this movie came out during that time period where filmmakers got so excited about the limitless possibilities of CGI that they didn't really realize the technology wasn't ready yet. That's pretty much the time period this movie came out. And unless you were Jurassic Park, which somehow made it work. And yeah, this movie's CGI is absolutely horrendous. And then there's a monorail during the Zord battle. There's a monorail and a bunch of characters that are on a monorail. And the monorail shots are all done with miniatures. Miniature track, miniature monorail, miniature buildings in the background. It's a miniature. And I'm thinking to myself as I'm watching this movie, why? Why a miniature? What's the point? I don't see why it was done with a miniature. Was it because the show had miniatures? I mean, I guess. I guess the show had miniatures, but why was it a miniature? So the special and visual effects in this movie range from impressively good to some of the worst I've ever seen to why? Like all the time. So the special and visual effects in this movie are so inconsistent that I just thought it was worth noting. Second, the costumes. I did not think it was possible for the costumes in this movie to look even more ridiculous than they did in the show. I was wrong. They look way more ridiculous than they did in the show. Why is it the movie with the bigger budget has more ridiculous looking costumes? I don't know. Lord Zed has a horrendously terrible line in this movie that I think really sums up the writing of this movie very well. When he and Rita first release Ivan Ooze from his egg, yes, he comes out of an egg, and he introduces himself, he says,
I am Lord Zed, sworn enemy of all that is good and decent.
That's literally what he says. He says, I am Lord Zed, the enemy of all that is good and decent. That is a special kind of terrible line. Ivan Ooze is able to rebel against Lord Zed and Rita, and he puts them in a snow globe. Which is just silly. Why would you put them in a snow globe? They come across this lady who helps them on another planet, and what on earth is she wearing? She is like wearing this like weird bikini thing the entire time she's in the movie. And I mean, what was the point of having her dressed like that? Like, was it to give all the dads that were being dragged to this movie by their kids something to look at? I mean, like, what was the point of dressing her like that? During the first big action scene, there is a song that plays. And yeah, the show had terrible songs too. But this song that plays during this action scene is one of the worst songs I have ever heard in a movie in my entire life. It is one of the absolute worst songs you will ever hear in your life. Action boy now, action girl now, it's a climb another mountain.
Ever play kick the can?
Action boy now, action girl now, be prepared to surf across the ocean. Yeah, that bad. There is a part during while they're on their other planet, they're given powers that are themed by all these different animals or whatever, and one of them gets a frog as his animal. And so when they're all getting their Zords in the climax, they're all yelling like, Ninja Falcon Sword, Ninja Panther Sword, or whatever like that. And those sound kind of cool, I guess. But the guy who got a frog as his animal, he yells, Ninja Frog Sword!
Ninja Frog Sword!
And I just started laughing when he said that, because it doesn't sound cool at all. It sounds ridiculous. Ninja Frog Sword! I want a t-shirt that says that now, just Ninja Frog Sword. I want a t-shirt that says that now. There's a part also in the climax where he says, it might have been the same one, or maybe it was Billy, I don't know. One of them says that they need to lead Ivan away from the city, and so they're going to take him into outer space. And so he's like, all right, setting a course for outer space.
I'll set a course for outer space.
And I thought about that, and I'm like, set a course for outer space? Okay, that's a special kind of dumb. Set a course for outer space. It's space! No matter where you are or where you go, as long as you're going up, you're gonna get to space. What do you mean set a course for outer space? That is a special kind of stupid. Now here are some things that don't really make sense, that kind of contradict previously established stuff in the show that I just thought was, and I mean the show is ridiculous and terrible too, but if you're gonna be terrible, at least be consistent about it. And there were two big things that didn't really make a lot of sense and were kind of inconsistent. Number one is Zordon's location. In the show, it's kind of implied that Zordon is not on Earth. He's somewhere very, very far away, and he's like projecting himself into this command center, and that's why you only see his head. I could be wrong about that, but that's what the implication I got from watching the show, is that he was somewhere far away from Earth projecting himself, which is why you only saw his head. But then when Ivan Ooze comes in and destroys the command center in this movie, Zordon's body is there in the command center, as if it was underneath the tube his head was being projected into. So you're telling me Zordon's on Earth now? Like, I know this movie isn't considered canon to the overall franchise, but still. Where was Zordon? Because the show very heavily implied, in my opinion, that he was somewhere very far away, maybe even in another dimension, projecting himself onto Earth. But now you're saying he's on Earth the whole time? It was just confusing. And another thing that was confusing is pretty early on in the movie, they lose their powers. Their power coins lose all their powers, or whatever the technical thing of it is. And that's one of the main reasons why they need to go to this other planet, to get their powers back. Well, the show makes it very, very clear, or if not makes it very clear, then at least very heavily implies that that their fighting ability without their costumes on, just as their normal selves without the costumes on, they're still amazing fighters, and they can do all the flippity-doos and punches and kicks and everything. It's heavily implied in the show that the power coins, the power they were bestowed upon, allows them to do that, allows them to be great fighters even without their costumes. But in this movie, after they lose their power and their power coins become worthless, they can still fight very well. And it just got me confused. I was like, but I thought in the show they were great fighters outside of their costumes because of the power coins. If they're gone now, then why are they able to fight? They can still fight without them. This doesn't make sense. Why does a dumb Tommy Wiseau-style superhero show for 3-year-olds not make sense? So, those are just some things I wrote down. Specific things that just either made me laugh or just didn't really make sense about this. Things that I didn't want to try and figure out a way to incorporate into my general review, but I still wanted to mention. Yeah. My final words are just watch. If you and your friends want to get together and spend an hour and a half laughing at a bad movie, then this is a great movie to do it in. It's one of those so bad it's good, so bad it's fun types of movies, and I recommend it for that purpose. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. The next Multi-Prometheus 1 video you can expect from me is probably going to be the In Defense of The Last Jedi. That is a movie that definitely needs an In Defense of, because I loved it. I think it's the best Star Wars film outside of the original trilogy. Like, if I had to rank my 4 favorite Star Wars films, it would probably be Empire #1, Star Wars #2, Return of the Jedi #3, Last Jedi #4. I mean, I loved The Last Jedi so much, even after seeing it multiple times, you know, almost all of the big things that people are complaining about it, I completely disagree with. So I really want to make an In Defense of on it, and I'm supposed to be getting my copy of the movie really soon. I'm having to get it from I'm kind of having to import it a little bit from America because it's not coming out here for a while. So as soon as I have that, which should be in a week or two, I'm gonna start working on the In Defense of for The Last Jedi because I really want to defend that movie. I mean, so many people are acting like it's the death of Star Wars, that like it's destroyed Star Wars because it's so horrible. And I completely disagree. I loved it. I thought it was a masterpiece. So I really, really want to have my next Multi Prometheus 1 video be on The Last Jedi. That's what you can look forward to in the near future. But until then, thank you very much. I am Justin. This was another Out of Character review. Bye.
A massive surge of evil energy is overloading our sensors.